Marcus Chen had been alone for 3 years, 4 months, and 16 days. Not that anyone was counting except him, and the tally marks scratched into the wooden beam above his bed served as a constant reminder of his solitude. The mountain cabin his grandfather left him had become both sanctuary and prison, perched high enough in the Colorado Rockies that even the most determined hikers rarely ventured this far up the unmarked trails. The 20-year-old had good reasons for his isolation. The world below had become too loud, too crowded, too demanding after the incident that changed everything. He preferred the company of wind through pine trees and the occasional deer that wandered into his small garden. His days followed a predictable rhythm. Tend the solar panels, check the water filtration system, maintain his small greenhouse, and read from the extensive library his grandfather had collected over decades of mountain living. Marcus had been born for this life, though he never realized it until forced circumstances brought him here. His grandfather, a former NASA engineer turned survivalist, had taught him everything about living off-grid. Solar power systems, water purification, basic electronics, even some advanced engineering concepts that most people never bothered learning. The old man always said knowledge was the most valuable currency in any crisis, and Marcus had absorbed those lessons like a sponge. The morning everything changed started like any other. Marcus woke before sunrise, checked the weather monitoring equipment he maintained for the National Weather Service, and began his daily inspection of the property. The September air carried the crisp promise of early autumn, and he breathed deeply as he walked the perimeter of his small domain. Everything seemed normal until he approached the front door of his cabin. There, sitting on his doorstep like a package delivery, was something that definitely did not belong in the Colorado wilderness. At first glance, Marcus thought it might be some kind of elaborate toy or perhaps a piece of experimental technology that had fallen from an aircraft. The object was roughly the size of a basketball, but elongated like an egg, with a surface that seemed to shift between metallic silver and deep blue depending on the angle of the morning light. More concerning were the scorch marks around it and the small crater it sat in, as if it had fallen from a great height and somehow survived the impact without breaking apart. The earth around the impact site was still warm to the touch, steam rising gently in the cool morning air. Whatever this thing was, it had arrived recently and with considerable force. Marcus approached cautiously, his grandfather's voice echoing in his memory about being careful with unknown objects. But curiosity won over caution, as it often did with people who spent too much time alone with their thoughts. As he crouched down to examine the strange object more closely, he noticed hairline seams running along its surface, suggesting it might be some kind of container or pod. The surface was smooth to the touch, neither warm nor cold, but somehow alive feeling. Not alive in a biological sense, but active. Like it contained sophisticated electronics running complex processes. Marcus had enough experience with technology to recognize when something was more advanced than anything he had seen before. This was definitely not human technology, at least not any human technology he was familiar with. As he ran his fingers along one of the seams, the object suddenly split open along multiple lines, unfolding like a metallic flower. Marcus jerked his hand back and stumbled backward, landing hard on his backside as the thing continued to unfold. What emerged from the center of the opening pod was so unexpected that Marcus wondered if his isolated lifestyle had finally driven him to hallucinations. Standing in the center of the unfolded pod was a creature no bigger than his thumb, but unmistakably alive and clearly not from Earth. The tiny being had a humanoid shape, but with proportions that seemed designed for a different gravity. Its limbs were longer relative to its torso, and its head was larger in proportion to its body. The skin had a slight translucent quality, revealing what looked like a circulatory system that glowed with soft bioluminescence. Most remarkably, the creature was obviously intelligent. It wore what could only be described as a tiny spacesuit, complete with a helmet that revealed large, expressive eyes. Those eyes were currently fixed on Marcus with a mixture of fear, exhaustion, and something that might have been hope. Marcus sat frozen, afraid that any sudden movement might frighten the tiny being back into its pod. He had read enough science fiction to know that first contact was supposed to be a momentous occasion for humanity. But he had never imagined it happening to him personally, and certainly not in such an intimate, small-scale way. The tiny alien raised one impossibly small hand in what Marcus recognized as a universal gesture of greeting. When Marcus carefully raised his own hand in response, the creature's posture relaxed slightly. Communication had been established, even if neither party knew what to do next. "Hello," Marcus whispered, feeling somewhat foolish for speaking to something that probably did not understand English. To his amazement, the creature tilted its head and made a series of soft, chirping sounds that somehow conveyed meaning despite being completely foreign. The tone suggested acknowledgement, perhaps even relief. The alien gestured toward itself and made a specific sound that Marcus interpreted as its name. When the creature pointed at Marcus and waited expectantly, he realized he was being asked for his own name. "Marcus," he said softly, pointing to himself. The alien attempted to reproduce the sounds, coming close enough that Marcus could recognize his name in the tiny voice. The next few minutes involved a fascinating exercise in interspecies communication. Through gestures, simple sounds, and what seemed like some kind of limited telepathic impression, Marcus began to understand that the creature was in distress. Its pod had not landed here intentionally. This was an emergency landing, possibly a crash. The alien kept gesturing toward the sky and making distressed chirping sounds. It pointed to various parts of its tiny spacesuit, which Marcus now realized might be damaged. Some kind of indicator lights on the suit were flashing in patterns that suggested warning signals. Marcus felt a familiar sensation he had not experienced since leaving civilization behind: the desire to help someone in need. His grandfather had taught him that hospitality was sacred, especially for travelers in trouble. It did not matter that this traveler had come from another world. The principle remained the same. The question was, how to help a being so small and alien that Marcus was not even sure what its basic needs might be. Food, water, and shelter were probably universal concepts. But what counted as food for a creature that evolved on another planet? Did it breathe oxygen? Was Earth's atmosphere even safe for it? As if sensing his confusion, the alien reached into what looked like a tiny pack and withdrew an object even smaller than itself. The device projected a holographic display that began showing images and symbols. Marcus realized he was looking at some kind of universal translator or communication device. The first images showed a star map with one point highlighted and flashing. The alien pointed to itself, then to the flashing star, indicating its home. The next images showed what looked like technical schematics of the pod, with several systems highlighted in what Marcus assumed was the alien equivalent of red warning lights. Understanding dawned on Marcus like sunrise over the mountains. This tiny being was stranded, far from home, with damaged equipment. Its ship, if that was what the pod was, needed repairs that the alien could not make on its own. The creature was not just seeking help. It was seeking someone with the technical knowledge and resources to fix advanced technology. Marcus looked at the tiny alien, then at the complex schematics floating in the holographic display, then back at the creature's hopeful expression. 3 years of isolation had not prepared him for this moment, but decades of learning from his grandfather had. He was probably the only human for hundreds of miles with the combination of technical knowledge, electronic equipment, and willingness to believe what he was seeing. The alien seemed to understand that Marcus was processing the situation. It waited patiently, occasionally adjusting controls on its communication device to show different angles of the technical problems it faced. The creature was clearly intelligent enough to recognize that humans might be capable of help, even if they were much larger and less technologically advanced than the alien's own species. Marcus made his decision with the same certainty that had guided him through 3 years of mountain living. He stood up carefully, making sure not to create sudden movements that might startle his tiny visitor. "Come on," he said gently, gesturing toward the cabin. "Let's see what we can do." The alien's response was immediate and unmistakably positive. It quickly folded its communication device and climbed back into the pod, which sealed itself and somehow became light enough for Marcus to carry easily. The technology was clearly beyond his understanding, but the basic principle of helping a traveler in need was as old as humanity itself. As Marcus carried the pod toward his cabin, he realized his life of isolation had just ended in the most unexpected way possible. Instead of dreading the change, he found himself energized for the first time in years. Someone needed his help, and he had the skills to provide it. The fact that someone was from another world just made the challenge more interesting. Inside the cabin, Marcus cleared a space on his main workbench and gently set down the pod. When it opened again, the alien emerged and immediately began examining its surroundings with obvious interest. The creature seemed particularly fascinated by Marcus's electronic equipment and the array of tools he had inherited from his grandfather. The alien gestured toward the equipment and made questioning sounds. Marcus realized he was being asked about his technological capabilities. This was clearly a being that understood the importance of having the right tools for complex repairs. "Let me show you what we have to work with," Marcus said, beginning to gather his electronic testing equipment, soldering tools, and component supplies. He might be isolated from human civilization, but thanks to his grandfather's foresight, he had everything needed to maintain and repair sophisticated technology. The alien watched with growing excitement as Marcus displayed his capabilities. When Marcus demonstrated his oscilloscope and spectrum analyzer, the tiny being made sounds that could only be described as impressed approval. It seemed that human technology, while primitive compared to alien standards, might be advanced enough to help with the necessary repairs. As the day progressed, Marcus found himself engaged in the most fascinating technical collaboration of his life. The alien's holographic displays showed him exactly what needed to be fixed, while Marcus used his equipment to analyze the alien technology and figure out human solutions to alien problems. The work was challenging but not impossible. The alien's technology operated on principles Marcus could understand, even if the execution was far more advanced than anything humans had achieved. It was like being asked to repair a smartphone using 1950s electronics. Difficult, but not theoretically impossible for someone with sufficient knowledge and creativity. By evening, they had made significant progress on several of the damaged systems. The alien's communication device now included basic English words, making their cooperation much more efficient. Marcus learned that his visitor's name was something like Zephyr when translated into human sounds, and that Zephyr's species were explorers and scientists who traveled between star systems studying different worlds. Zephyr had been on a routine survey mission when unexpected solar storm activity damaged the navigation systems and forced an emergency landing on the nearest habitable planet. Earth had been chosen simply because it was close enough to reach with failing power systems. The irony was not lost on Marcus that an interstellar explorer had ended up seeking help from someone who had chosen to live as far from other humans as possible. But perhaps that isolation had been preparation for exactly this kind of encounter. Marcus had the time, resources, and motivation to help that few other humans could have provided. As night fell over the mountains, Marcus realized he was no longer alone in his cabin, and the change felt better than he had expected. Zephyr had set up what looked like a tiny camp near Marcus's workbench, complete with miniature equipment that suggested a long-term stay might be necessary. The repairs would take time, possibly weeks, but Marcus found himself looking forward to the challenge. For the first time since retreating to the mountains, he had a purpose that extended beyond simple survival. He was helping someone return home, and that someone represented an entirely new chapter in human understanding of the universe. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and discoveries, but tonight, Marcus fell asleep to the soft, bioluminescent glow of his tiny alien guest, feeling more connected to the cosmos than he had ever felt connected to human society. The morning sun streaming through the cabin windows revealed the full scope of the challenge Marcus and Zephyr faced. During the night, the tiny alien had projected a complete diagnostic of its damaged systems, and the holographic display now filled half the cabin with intricate three-dimensional schematics. What Marcus saw made him whistle low under his breath. The damage was extensive. Zephyr's craft was not just a simple pod, but a sophisticated interstellar vehicle compressed into what appeared to be a small space through technology Marcus could barely comprehend. The navigation matrix was completely fried. The power coupling systems were operating at 12% efficiency, and something called the dimensional phase stabilizer was showing critical failure readings. "This is way more complex than I thought," Marcus admitted, studying the floating displays. Zephyr, who had been awake for hours analyzing the damage, made a series of soft, chirping sounds that the translation device rendered as worried agreement. Over breakfast, which consisted of Marcus eating scrambled eggs while Zephyr consumed what looked like tiny glowing pellets from its emergency supplies, they developed a repair strategy. The alien's technology operated on principles of controlled energy manipulation that were centuries ahead of human science, but the basic components needed to implement those principles were surprisingly similar to advanced Earth electronics. The first breakthrough came when Marcus realized that Zephyr's power coupling system was essentially an extremely sophisticated version of superconducting magnetic energy storage. While he could not replicate the alien materials, he could create functional replacements using high-temperature superconductors and rare earth magnets from his electronics supplies. "The trick," Marcus explained to Zephyr, while carefully winding microscopic coils of superconducting wire, "is not to match your technology exactly, but to create something that can interface with it." Zephyr watched with fascination as Marcus used a jeweler's loop and steady hands to craft components smaller than rice grains. The work required a level of precision that pushed Marcus's skills to their limits. Each component had to be manufactured to tolerances measured in micrometers, using tools that were originally designed for much larger human-scale electronics. Marcus found himself adapting techniques from watchmaking, microchip fabrication, and even surgery as he worked to create alien technology using human methods. 3 days into the repair process, they encountered their first major obstacle. The navigation matrix required a specific type of crystalline structure that Zephyr's people grew in zero gravity using controlled magnetic fields. Earth had no equivalent material, and attempting to substitute human electronics resulted in immediate failure. Marcus spent an entire day staring at the problem, walking the forest trails around his cabin while his mind worked on the challenge. Zephyr accompanied him during these walks. Riding in a small container Marcus had fashioned into a mobile observation platform. The alien seemed to appreciate the mountain scenery, though it occasionally pointed out geological features that suggested Earth was much younger than its home world. The solution came to Marcus while he was examining quartz crystals he had collected from a nearby stream. Quartz was piezoelectric, generating electrical charges when subjected to mechanical stress. But more importantly, quartz crystals could be grown with specific lattice structures under controlled conditions. "What if we don't try to replicate your materials?" Marcus suggested to Zephyr, "but instead create a hybrid system that translates between your technology and ours. Working together, They designed an interface system using Earth-grown quartz crystals arranged in a geometric pattern that could mimic the behavior of Zephyr's navigation materials. It required Marcus to build a small crystal-growing apparatus using aquarium pumps, heating elements, and precise chemical solutions he ordered online using his grandfather's emergency credit card. The process took a week of careful monitoring, but the results exceeded their expectations. The hybrid crystals not only interfaced with Zephyr systems, but actually improved their efficiency by eliminating some compatibility issues that had existed in the original design. "Your species," Zephyr commented through the improved translation system, "has a remarkable ability to improvise solutions using available resources. Most civilizations would require exact replacement materials or would abandon the repair entirely." This observation led to longer conversations about human nature and Earth's place in the galactic community. Zephyr explained that most intelligent species developed technology along predictable paths, usually following the same basic progression from simple tools to energy manipulation to space travel. Humans were unusual in their tendency to approach problems from unexpected angles. "You use what you call lateral thinking," Zephyr explained. "Most species think in straight lines from problem to solution. Humans seem to think in spirals, connecting ideas that should not be related but somehow work together." Marcus found this perspective fascinating. His grandfather had always emphasized the importance of creative problem-solving, but he had never considered it a specifically human trait. According to Zephyr, most alien species would have declared the repair impossible without exact replacement parts and would have waited for rescue ships that might take decades to arrive. The work became easier as they developed better communication and understanding of each other's capabilities. Zephyr possessed theoretical knowledge that was centuries ahead of human science, while Marcus had practical engineering skills and an intuitive understanding of how to make incompatible systems work together. Their biggest breakthrough came while working on the dimensional phase stabilizer, a device that allowed Zephyr's craft to exist in compressed space without violating physics. The component required a power regulation system so precise that Zephyr's people normally manufactured them in orbital facilities using gravity-free assembly techniques. Marcus solved the problem by adapting optical fiber technology and quantum tunneling effects that he had read about in his grandfather's physics journals. Using fiber optic cables scavenged from old telecommunications equipment, he created a power distribution network that used light instead of electricity to carry control signals. "This should not work," Zephyr said, watching Marcus test the hybrid system. "The physics are completely different from our normal approach." "But it does work," Marcus replied with satisfaction as the dimensional stabilizer came online for the first time since the crash. Sometimes different physics can achieve the same results. The success of the dimensional repair led to rapid progress on the remaining systems. Marcus's approach of creating hybrid solutions rather than exact replacements allowed them to work around multiple material limitations. In each case, Marcus found creative ways to achieve the required functionality using Earth technology and human engineering principles. During the second week of repairs, they were interrupted by the first human visitors Marcus had seen in months. A pair of hikers had gotten lost and approached the cabin looking for directions. Marcus quickly hid Zephyr and the alien technology, then provided the hikers with food, water, and guidance back to the main trail. After the humans left, Zephyr emerged from hiding with obvious curiosity about Marcus's interaction with his own species. "You were generous to strangers who offered nothing in return," Zephyr observed. "This is common human behavior?" "Hospitality is important," Marcus explained. "Someone in trouble deserves help, regardless of whether they can pay for it." "Fascinating," Zephyr replied. "Most species require formal exchange agreements before providing assistance to unknown individuals. Your people offer help based on need alone?" This led to a long discussion about human ethics and social behavior that continued over several days while they worked. Zephyr was particularly interested in human concepts of charity, sacrifice, and cooperation between unrelated individuals. According to the alien, such behavior was extremely rare in the galaxy. Most intelligent species cooperate within family groups or formal alliances, Zephyr explained. They help strangers only when there is clear benefit to themselves. Humans seem to help others simply because they perceive need. Marcus had never thought about human generosity as unusual, but Zephyr's observations made him reconsider many things he had taken for granted. The alien's perspective suggested that humans might be unique in the galaxy, not for their technology or intelligence, but for their willingness to help others without expectation of reward. The final major challenge came when they tested the repaired navigation system and discovered that Earth's magnetic field was interfering with the calibration process. The system needed to lock onto specific stellar navigation beacons, but the planet's magnetic field was creating distortion that prevented accurate readings. Most species would have waited for the interference to clear naturally, but Marcus approached the problem with characteristic human stubbornness. He built a magnetic field cancellation system using superconducting coils and active feedback control, essentially creating a bubble of magnetically neutral space around the cabin. The system required precise tuning and consumed enormous amounts of power, but it worked perfectly. For the first time since crashing on Earth, Zephyr's navigation system achieved full lock on the galactic beacon network. "Impossible," Zephyr said, staring at the clear navigation display. "You have created local space conditions that should require massive industrial facilities. How did you achieve this level of precision using primitive human technology?" "Trial and error," Marcus admitted, plus a lot of stubborn refusal to admit something couldn't be done. With the navigation system operational, they moved on to the final phase of repairs, restoring the craft's dimensional compression and preparing for departure. This was the most dangerous part of the process, as any mistake could result in the craft either exploding or disappearing into dimensional space permanently. Marcus found himself feeling conflicted about the approaching success. The past 2 weeks had been the most intellectually stimulating of his life, and Zephyr had become genuine company in a way that felt different from normal human interaction. The alien's perspective had given Marcus new ways of thinking about technology, problem-solving, and human nature itself. "Will you report this contact to your people?" Marcus asked as they prepared for the final tests. "Yes," Zephyr replied, "but the report will focus on your technological capabilities and willingness to assist stranded travelers. Your location will remain secret unless you choose otherwise." Marcus appreciated the consideration. He was not ready to deal with the chaos that would result if the world learned about first contact happening in an isolated mountain cabin. But he was curious about what Zephyr would tell its people about humans. "My report will emphasize your species' remarkable problem-solving abilities and cooperative nature," Zephyr said. "These are rare traits in the galaxy, and ones that suggest humans will be valuable allies when you eventually develop interstellar travel." The final test sequence began at sunset on the 15th day. Marcus had built monitoring equipment to track the dimensional compression process, while Zephyr operated the restored systems from within the craft. Everything had to work perfectly on the first attempt, as the energy requirements meant they would not get a second chance. As the systems came online, Marcus watched his instruments register energy readings that pushed human understanding to its limits. The air around the craft shimmered as dimensional fields stabilized, and the pod began to shift between visible and translucent as it existed in multiple dimensional phases simultaneously. "All systems showing green," Marcus called out, reading from displays that showed engineering principles he could barely comprehend. "Dimensional stabilizer holding steady, navigation matrix locked on target coordinates, power coupling at 97% efficiency." The success was obvious in Zephyr's excited response. The tiny alien emerged from the craft with obvious relief and satisfaction, gesturing toward the readings with what Marcus had learned to recognize as expressions of gratitude. "You have achieved something remarkable," Zephyr said through the translation system. "Not only successful repair, but improvement over original specifications in several areas. Your hybrid solutions are more efficient than our standard designs." Marcus felt a surge of pride that had nothing to do with personal accomplishment and everything to do with representing his species well. He had proven that humans could rise to extraordinary challenges and find solutions that even more advanced civilizations had not considered. As they prepared for Zephyr's departure the next morning, Marcus realized that his life was about to change again. The isolation that had seemed necessary after his difficulties with human society now felt less important than the connections he was capable of making. Zephyr had shown him that his skills and instincts had value beyond simple survival. The tiny alien had given him something unexpected: confidence that he could handle whatever challenges life presented, and proof that his grandfather's lessons about helping others in need applied throughout the universe. Tomorrow would bring farewell, but tonight Marcus felt connected to something larger than his mountain sanctuary. He was no longer just an isolated human surviving in the wilderness. He was Earth's first interstellar engineer, and he had done the job well. The morning of departure arrived with the kind of crystal-clear mountain air that made the peaks seem close enough to touch. Marcus stood outside his cabin, watching Zephyr make final preparations for the journey home. The tiny alien moved with efficient purpose, checking systems and loading supplies with the practiced precision of someone who had done this many times before. Over the past 16 days, Marcus had grown accustomed to the soft, bioluminescent glow that marked Zephyr's presence in the cabin. The alien had become a constant companion during the repair work, and the approaching silence felt heavier than the isolation Marcus had chosen 3 years ago. "The departure window opens in 1 hour," Zephyr announced, consulting readings from the restored navigation system. "Solar wind conditions are optimal, and the dimensional field generators are running at peak efficiency." Marcus nodded, checking his own instruments one final time. The hybrid monitoring system he had built would track Zephyr's craft until it left Earth's atmosphere, providing confirmation that the repairs held together during the most stressful part of the journey. As they completed the pre-flight checklist, Marcus found himself thinking about the conversations they had shared during the repair process. Zephyr's observations about human nature had given him a new perspective on his own species and his place within it. The alien's descriptions of galactic civilization painted a picture of a universe where cooperation was rare and genuine altruism was almost unknown. "Your people will be interested to learn about humans," Marcus said, making final adjustments to the communication array that would relay status reports during departure. "Indeed," Zephyr replied. "The Galactic Council maintains records of all known intelligent species, categorized by their technological development and social characteristics. Humans will represent a unique entry in those records." According to Zephyr, most spacefaring civilizations fell into predictable patterns. They either became highly logical but emotionally distant, focusing on efficiency and resource management, or they became insular and xenophobic, limiting their interactions with other species to necessary trade agreements. Very few species combined advanced problem-solving abilities with genuine concern for others. "The galaxy has been waiting for a species like yours," Zephyr explained as they moved the craft to a clear area for takeoff. "Most civilizations are either too cautious to explore unknown territories or too aggressive to be trusted with advanced technology. Humans seem to combine curiosity with responsibility in ways that could benefit everyone." Marcus felt the weight of that observation. He was not just saying goodbye to a friend, he was potentially influencing humanity's future relationship with galactic civilization. The report Zephyr carried back would shape how other species viewed humans when contact finally became official. The thought was both exciting and terrifying. Marcus had spent 3 years avoiding human society, yet he had somehow become humanity's first interstellar diplomat. The irony was not lost on him, but perhaps his isolation had been the perfect preparation for this role. He had learned to think independently, solve problems creatively, and help others without expecting anything in return. 30 minutes before departure, Zephyr presented Marcus with something unexpected, a small device about the size of a smartphone, but made from the same shifting metallic material as the alien's original pod. "This is a communication beacon," Zephyr explained. "It will allow limited contact between Earth and my ship during my journey home. More importantly, it will serve as a marker for future contact missions." Marcus examined the device carefully. It was beautiful in an alien way, with surfaces that seemed to bend light around curved edges, and a soft internal glow that pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. "You're giving this to me specifically?" Marcus asked. "The device is calibrated to your biometric signature," Zephyr confirmed. "When official contact is established, the Galactic Council will know to seek you out as Earth's first successful collaborator with alien technology. Your experience will be valuable in establishing protocols for future interactions." The implications were staggering. Marcus realized that his isolation was about to end permanently, though not in any way he could have predicted. Instead of returning to human society, he would become a bridge between humanity and the galaxy beyond. "How long before official contact?" Marcus asked. "Difficult to predict," Zephyr admitted. "The Council moves slowly, and there are protocols for introducing new species to galactic civilization. Perhaps 10 of your years, possibly 20. But when it happens, Earth will not be approached as a primitive world requiring guidance. Your problem-solving abilities have proven that humans are ready for partnership rather than supervision." As departure time approached, Marcus helped Zephyr with the final system checks. The tiny alien moved efficiently through its pre-flight routine, but Marcus could sense something like sadness in its demeanor. The feeling was mutual. Their collaboration had been the most meaningful work either of them had done in years. "I have a confession," Zephyr said as they completed the last diagnostic sequence. "This mission was not originally a survey expedition. I was traveling to a research station when the solar storm caused my systems to fail. The emergency landing on Earth was pure chance." Marcus looked up from the instrument readings, surprised by this revelation. "You were never supposed to make contact with humans at all?" "Correct," Zephyr replied. "First contact protocols normally require extensive preparation and official authorization. Our meeting violates several galactic regulations about exposing primitive civilizations to advanced technology." "Will you get in trouble for this?" Zephyr made a sound that the translation device rendered as something like laughter. "Quite the opposite. The successful collaboration and the technological insights you have provided will be seen as extremely valuable. The regulations exist to prevent harmful contact, not to prohibit beneficial interactions." The alien gestured toward the repaired craft, which was now humming with energy that made the air shimmer with heat distortion. "You have demonstrated that humans can work with alien technology without becoming dependent on it or trying to weaponize it. This is remarkable. Most species either reject foreign technology as too dangerous or attempt to reverse engineer it for military applications. You simply collaborated to solve a problem." Marcus had never considered their work in those terms, but he supposed Zephyr was right. His instinct had been to help a stranded traveler, not to extract secrets or gain technological advantages. The repairs had been about getting Zephyr home safely, not about advancing human civilization at the expense of alien knowledge. "Perhaps that is why the Council will be interested in establishing formal relations with your people," Zephyr continued. "True cooperation is rare in the galaxy. Most interactions are based on fear, competition, or calculated advantage. Humans seem capable of genuine partnership." 5 minutes before departure, Zephyr climbed into the craft for the final time. The pod sealed itself with a soft hiss, and the dimensional fields began to stabilize around the vehicle. Marcus stepped back to the safe observation distance they had calculated, watching his instruments register the incredible energy patterns that would soon lift his friend back to the stars. "Departure countdown initiating," Zephyr's voice came through the communication beacon Marcus now carried. "All systems showing optimal readings. The repairs are holding perfectly under full power load." Marcus watched the energy readings climb toward takeoff levels, feeling a mixture of pride and sadness. The successful departure would prove that their collaboration had worked, but it would also end the most interesting period of his life. "Marcus," Zephyr's voice continued through the beacon, "I want you to understand what you have accomplished. You have not simply helped one stranded traveler. You have demonstrated that your species possesses qualities that could change the balance of galactic civilization." The craft began to rise, lifting slowly at first as the dimensional fields established full stability. Marcus's instruments tracked every aspect of the departure, recording data that would someday be invaluable to human scientists studying the principles of interstellar travel. The galaxy has been dominated for millennia by species that prioritize security and efficiency over exploration and cooperation, Zephyr explained as the craft gained altitude. "Your people represent something different, the combination of curiosity, technical skill, and genuine altruism that could inspire other civilizations to reconsider their approaches." As the craft climbed higher, Marcus realized that Zephyr was giving him more than a farewell message. This was a briefing on humanity's potential role in galactic society, information that would be crucial when official contact eventually occurred. "The Galactic Council has been searching for what they call a catalyst species," Zephyr continued. "A civilization that could encourage greater cooperation and exploration among existing spacefaring races. Based on our collaboration, humans may be exactly what the galaxy needs." The craft reached the edge of Earth's atmosphere, and Marcus's instruments began showing the transition to true interstellar flight mode. The dimensional compression was working perfectly, allowing the tiny vessel to achieve speeds that would carry Zephyr across light years in a matter of weeks. "Interstellar transition successful," Zephyr reported as the craft disappeared from Marcus's visual tracking equipment. "All systems stable, navigation locked on home coordinates. Estimated arrival time, 18 days, 7 hours Earth time." Marcus stood in his mountain clearing, looking up at the morning sky where his friend had vanished into the infinite distance between stars. The communication beacon in his hands pulsed softly, maintaining contact across an impossible gulf of space. "Thank you, Marcus." Zephyr's voice came through the device, already slightly distorted by the vast distance. "You have given me more than repairs to my ship. You have given the galaxy hope for a better future." The transmission faded as Zephyr's craft moved beyond the beacon's range, leaving Marcus alone with his thoughts and the knowledge that everything had changed. He was no longer an isolated human, hiding from society in a mountain cabin. He was Earth's first interstellar contact specialist, keeper of secrets that would reshape humanity's understanding of its place in the universe. Over the following days, Marcus found himself looking at his environment with new eyes. The mountain peaks that had once represented escape from human complexity now seemed like temporary boundaries waiting to be transcended. The forest trails that had provided solitude now felt like pathways leading toward an incredible future. The communication beacon became his most treasured possession, providing periodic updates on Zephyr's journey and occasional messages about life aboard an interstellar vessel. Through these communications, Marcus learned more about galactic civilization and his friend's own species, building knowledge that would prove invaluable when humanity eventually joined the interstellar community. 3 weeks after departure, Zephyr sent a message that changed everything once again. "Marcus, I have been contacted by the Galactic Council's Exploration Committee. Your repair solutions have generated significant interest among our engineers. They are requesting detailed technical specifications and would like to establish ongoing communication with Earth through our established link. The message continued with information that made Marcus's heart race with excitement and terror. The Council has accelerated the timeline for formal contact with humanity. Your collaboration has demonstrated that humans are ready for partnership rather than gradual introduction. Official first contact missions are being planned for approximately 5 Earth years from now, rather than the 20 years originally estimated. Marcus sat in his cabin, staring at the beacon as the implications settled in his mind. His willingness to help a stranded traveler had inadvertently fast-tracked humanity's introduction to galactic civilization. In 5 years, Earth would officially join an interstellar community that included dozens of intelligent species and technologies beyond human imagination. The isolation he had sought in the mountains now seemed like perfect preparation for the role he would soon play. While the rest of humanity continued their daily lives unaware that everything was about to change, Marcus had 5 years to prepare for the moment when Earth would need someone who understood both human nature and alien perspectives. He began writing detailed records of his collaboration with Zephyr, documenting not just the technical aspects of their work, but the philosophical insights that had emerged from their conversations. When the time came for official contact, humanity would need to understand not just how to communicate with aliens, but why such communication mattered for the future of galactic civilization. As autumn deepened in the Colorado mountains, Marcus realized that his story of isolation had become something else entirely, the beginning of humanity's greatest adventure. The 20-year-old who had retreated from human society had somehow become the person who would help his species take its first steps among the stars. The beacon pulsed softly beside him as he worked, carrying messages between Earth and the vast galaxy beyond. Through that tiny device, Marcus maintained a friendship that spanned light years and represented hope for a future where cooperation and understanding could bridge any gap, no matter how impossible it might seem. In 5 years, everything would change. But for now, Marcus had work to do, preparing for the day when humanity would need someone who understood that the greatest adventures began not with grand gestures, but with simple willingness to help a stranger in need.